Nadezhda, this was your brainchild, and I want you to tell everyone what were you thinking and how did this come up?
Very humbled and honored to be part of this conference and to launch this experimental part of the conference together with Eredita. Honestly, one of the best partners in crime I could ever wish for. New Agile Voices is the experimental program of creating the brave space for stories that do not typically make it to the spotlight in Agile conferences. It's our wish and our best attempt to bring these new voices on the stage from different communities, from different backgrounds, from different perspectives, and listen to their stories, share their experiences. Passing the mic to you, Ardita.
Yes, it's exactly that. And when Nadezhda said, I want to run this program and I want to bring some voices we haven't had a chance to hear before in large conferences, I said, I'm in, because I have always wanted to do this on all the previous events and conferences that I have helped as an organizer or as a speaker. And this just fits in. We want to start hearing some voices that come from, places that we don't usually cross our paths in our software building industries or financial places that we work on. So bringing this new perspective and new ideas, we hope they are going to expand and bring even to the attendees of this conference just another way to put things in their day to day, and to look into perspectives, and hopefully something that you can take back at work and create a ripple effect and multiply the lessons from here. This is not about us. This is about these 4 speakers that we have, 2 for today and 2 tomorrow, as Hugo said. So maybe we just start with our first one, with Anya. Do you want to introduce Anya, Nadezhda?
Well, I guess it will take some time to introduce Anya and the incredible energy she brings. Anya, and maybe we can briefly maybe bring her up on stage together with Nicole, our speakers of today. Hey, hey, ladies. It's truly a pleasure and honor having you with us today and listening to your stories. Anya, one of the co-founders of the company, primarily focusing on diversity and inclusion, and her story is about us versus them. And Nicole, with her incredible story about building your own Agile toolkit and looking into your personal experiences and what makes you an Agilist naturally. So, you ladies want to say a few words before we launch your stories?
Open your mind. As you said, I love this new project. Thank you so much for bringing me in and letting me share my experience and expertise working in the North American market, but being from Eastern Europe. So I kind of have a very holistic, I think, view on the markets. And I'm excited to share my work with you, and I hope it's of value.
I am super excited to be here. I just drew from all different parts of my life so that I could give you all an example of how you can be the best Agilist that you can be. So just like Anya said, open your mind and see what you find in there.
Fantastic. So maybe we start with Anya's session. It is a little bit of Anya will talk about the topic us versus them, and then there will be room for Q&A. So feel free to post questions as she presents. And we will make sure to answer those at the end. Thank you.
Welcome to the new Agile conference. I'm so excited to share this space with you and for you to be able to experience people like me who usually would not speak at the Agile conference. My name is Anya Soto. I'm the founder of the company called Culture Crafters. We're a global training company that trains people leaders and managers in inclusive leadership skills. That's what creates inclusive culture. We figured out people live because of managers and people stay because of managers. So today I'm going to kind of let you in behind the scenes and share with you some concepts, ideas, how we do it when we work with organizations. I will start with this mentality of us versus them. And this is where we start with leadership, right? We all know that most leadership in organizations is still white, male, and has a lot of privilege. So with that comes a lot of shame and people feeling like, oh, I don't want to even talk about it and it doesn't relate to me, or, why should we have an inclusive culture? So here's why the inclusive culture, right? The first one is innovation. If we don't have a safe space, if we haven't built trust with our teams, there will be no innovation because people will avoid conflict at any cost. The second part of it is retention. We spend so much money hiring diverse talent or any talent. And if we don't have inclusive culture, we hire them, we train them, we onboard them, we lose them, and we go back over and over and over again. So definitely retention, engagement, perspectives, marketing, sales, there's so many reasons. And the first default behavior that we have, right, as leaders, we would say, okay, it's a human nature to measure each other up. So when I see you, on average, it takes about 30 seconds for me to decide, am I better than or worse than? And we all have different categories, right? We look at your title, your financial status, your maybe physical appearance, your, money, clothes, looks, education. There are all these things that we try to measure you very quickly. And again, to normalize that this is normal, this is how we decide, do I feel safe? Oh, I'm safe, I'm better than you. Or do I feel like I need to perform to show you my value and my contribution, or I need to be on the lookout? So that separation is what creates silos. That separation mentality is where I start to decide like, ooh, I don't know, should I trust you? Should I not trust you? What does it look like? So for leadership team, culture starts with you. You're the ones who set the tone. You're the ones who set priorities. You're the ones who set the vision. So the first thing you can do is to start rewiring your mindset of like, well, I'm white and privileged, so I don't really know what I'm talking about. So that's like, it's different. And start connecting to what is your diversity story. I really want you to think, where in your life have you felt like you were the other? And you know what? Sometimes making more money than any of your friends feels like the other. Maybe you're the only one who has kids and nobody else does, or the only one who doesn't have kids and everyone else does. Someone who went to college and were the only male or the only female. The experience of otherness is a feeling, an emotion that we have all experienced. You might not have had an experience of losing a mother at a young age like I did, but I bet you know what grief feels like. You know what loss feels like. You know what it feels like going through breakup or divorce. And that is our humanity. And I wish every leader went away or moved away from feeling shame and guilt, because being white and having a social privilege is a fact. But that separation that we create is what eliminates that culture of inclusion. So spend this, evening, take 15 minutes out of your day and draft your own diversity story. There are all the things that where I felt like the other in my life, so I can connect with my diverse talent. So that is something that you can do in the next 24 hours. This is a quick switch that we help people with. When it comes to inclusive culture, I want to share with you a story that is very recent. 2 days ago, I coached one of my clients. She's a director of HR. And she shared with me that someone reported something on the president of a company. And she spent 2 hours thinking, should I go directly to the president, or should I go to VP, or should I go to the director of the other department? If I go directly to the president, would it mean that I went behind the back of this person? Should I send an email or should I just go? And I asked her, wow, that takes so much time and energy. She's like, yeah, right? Because it's like, it's the people, it's the politics. We all spend time trying to figure out this dynamics and human dynamics from a place of like, well, I know I need to do my job and I don't want to go and create this like back channeling or gossiping, or what's the best way to be like to approach it. And I asked her, okay, so how much time would you say you spend on this? And she said, maybe an hour, 2 hours a week, right? Being in HR. And I said, okay, how many employees do you have at a company? And she said, well, around 300 employees. And I'm like, imagine that everybody in your organization spends some time, maybe not as much, thinking about politics and who they trust and who they not trust. Who can they delegate this task to and who can they not? All the assumptions and biases they have when it comes to promotion or when it comes to hiring, or who should we include, who should we invite? This person is too old, this person is too young. It's like the judgments, the assumptions, all of this that we say, and now multiply that, even if it's an hour, 2 hours a week, by 300 employees. And that is what a culture where the trust is lacking and psychological safety is lacking is costing you. So now I want to move to how do you do that, right? And one of the ways I'm going to share with you a little slide that I created is the idea of like transactional D&I versus relational D&I. What do you measure, right? Because the Agile conference, I can imagine, we need data. We want to measure data. And it's true. I think both of them are important. Transactional D&I measures new hires. It measures retention, as I said about hires. It can measure, okay, are we promoting our diverse talent, right? You want to perform an equality audit. See who are your vendors and who are your partners. How can we make our systems and processes and policies more inclusive? Or maybe you're going to survey your company. That's where we always start with, like, what is the culture study? So that we're not working off assumptions. Because sometimes I would ask, and I'm like, so what would you say? The employees feel like you have an inclusive culture? They're like, yeah, we're always going to bars. We play sports. We play golf. And I'm like, what about those who don't play golf or don't drink? They're like, oh, those people don't work for us. That's one of the examples, right? So measure. You want to measure all of these things. And then there's a relational D&I. That is what's going to create an inclusive culture and is going to sustain all of your D&I initiatives. In relational D&I, we want to hear stories, right? We want to, if you're going to hire me as a diverse talent, ask me about my life experiences. Ask me what it was like being a gay woman. Ask me what is it like to not have maybe a level of education that is required. Ask me about what is it like to live in my community. Didn't you hire me for my perspective? This is where we say life experiences. You want to ask your diverse talent why they joined. What is it that they heard about your company? What's the gossip in the neighborhood? You know, it's like, what is your company known for? Why they joined? Because I bet you everybody does research. If they leave, why they left. Exit interviews can be one of the best strategies for your business. Those are the stories, the relationships. How do you teach your people leaders to build trust, empathy, psychological safety? How do we start valuing relationships over tasks? In leadership, we like to say 80% relationship, 20% logistics. Because if you build relationship, if I trust you, if I like you, if I believe you, if I will do anything to deliver on time. We don't need to spend as much time on logistics figuring it out because we have a relationship. Instead of me wasting 2 hours trying to figure out what is the best way to approach you, I can pick up my phone or I can send you email. That's relationships. This is where it gets interesting. So what does diversity and inclusion looks like in real, kind of like, what is the realistic timeline, right? Because when we start the efforts, we always say, okay, how can I do this super quickly? What is it going to look like? What do I do first? What do I do next? The first one I would say, do the diversity and inclusion training 101. Like really talk to people. What does it mean to be a diverse culture? Who is considered diverse talent? Every organization, every industry, every region, every, I don't know, industry and business size and level is different. That's why there are some things that are similar, right? We can train our people on what are microaggressions. How do we uncover our biases when it comes to retention or hiring or promoting? Are we transparent? But I think D&I training and creating that shared language and a shared accountability is really, really important. And that's where you should start. Measure culture and measure what do people say. Survey, culture study, whatever it looks like. If you need resources, if you need help, reach out to me. I'd be happy to provide it. On LinkedIn and the email, I get messages all the time. Anya, where do we start? Where do you even start? We are a company who is going through this high scaling period. We're hiring people like crazy. Have to promote from within. Our managers, how do we create this culture of inclusion? How do we hire diverse talent, right? So if you have any questions, you need resources, please reach out to me. So the 6 to 9 months, I would say, is when you start to identify your D&I champions. Who are the people that are really passionate about this work? People that really deeply care, right? And then we start creating ERG, employee resource groups. We also like to call them safe spaces. So once you do a culture study, right, or a survey, one of the things you want to measure is like, what kind of safe spaces are needed? Well, some of the ideas can be female in leadership roles, right? LGBT. Recently, we did a survey of a tech company with about 200 employees, and I think we had a 93% of employees asking for a mental health group. This is the burnout, anxiety, depression, fear about future, completely redesigning and reshaping your values with COVID. 93% of employees ask for mental health group. And then what happens, right? You create ERGs. I want you to support them. That means bring in consultants. Don't just leave them doing their own thing. Don't leave them behind. Support them, put the money on the table, bring in consultants, and help them run successful ERGs. The next one, because you want to start everywhere, you need to identify what are your top 3 priorities for your company. Is it the hiring or is it retention? Is it the training? Is it engagement? Is it building a community? What are your top 3 priorities? Because that's the max of number of things you can work on. Once you have identified that, 9 to 12 months, we usually suggest that it's time to perform an equity audit. What are your D&I metrics? Start identifying those metrics. Again, don't just go with Google. Identify what they are for you. What do you want to measure to move the needle forward, right? What are your priorities? What is your market? What are the needs of your employees? This is what we want to measure. Are our policies equitable, right? How are our policies and procedures? What does our hiring looks like? Where are we sourcing? The second year, you want to, as I said, train all employees on inclusive leadership skills, especially team leaders, especially managers, how to have productive conflict, how to have difficult conversations, how to give feedback, how do we seek feedback, how do we make sure everyone is included in our remote team meetings, right? When people are working from home. Equity is not equality. Again, not everybody needs the same. Equity is like, can we give them what they need? And do we know what our employees need? And this is also where you want to commit money and time. Because I'm telling you right now, if you're going to do lip service, or we call it performative allyship, don't even start. You're actually going to lose people, and people will lose trust. So if you're committed to go on this D&I journey and create an inclusive, diverse culture at your organization, you have to commit time and money. What do I mean by that? Stop using marginalized groups, especially employee resource groups, as a free resource. Meaning, we're going to create this group, but I guess expect you to do it at your free time or on a weekend because, we're really busy. and we just don't have time to dedicate to this. Or why don't you Google how to run these meetings? Committing time and money means we are gonna include this in your performance review. People who are running support groups, people who are allies, people who are helping us to make our culture more inclusive get bonuses. They get, I don't know, benefits. They get, their time is evaluated. We acknowledge their efforts and we compensate them for their work. Because what happens, the marginalized communities are again the ones doing all this work for free. So this is where you lose trust in people. And then beyond that, the training, D&I training is ongoing. Coaching is ongoing, especially for your leadership team, uncovering biases, uncovering what is your organizational identity, what kind of people work here, how do we do things around here, and commitment to inclusive culture. So hopefully this was useful. As I said, reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's Anya Soto. Send me an email. Our website is culturecraftersus.com. And as a last resource, I wanted to share with you this book. It's called, let me remove my slide. It's called The Anatomy of Peace. And this is about conflict. This is about the boxes I shared in the beginning, better than, worse than. It's a really, really good book for leadership team. And I would love to share more resources with you. And I can't wait to attend to some of your questions you might have. So I guess we're going to dive into the Q&A. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Wow. I mean, I heard that before, but again, I hearing it, there's so many nuggets of wisdom and tips that you share. That is so good, Anya. Thank you for bringing your perspective, your experience, and even to be real on what we do.
Thank you. Yeah, it was very challenging when you told me it has to be under 15 minutes. And I'm like, when you're passionate about your work and you can talk about it for 24 hours nonstop.
Yes. Well, thank you for that. Maybe one of the questions we can start with is, how does all of this fit in a world where we live globally, right?
Yeah.
It is now a common thing to live in your home and work from anywhere in the world. And the cultures are so different. The expectations are different. How can we mix that mix of cultures in, for example, a European company coming in the US market and probably, I don't know, failing maybe. What can we do on that area?
It's such a great question. Thank you, Ardita. And you're right. I think COVID has accelerated the globalization where now everybody can work anywhere. And especially I find for people leaders, right? How do you learn to manage that global team where people are in different time zones, people are in different market zones? I always say co-create with your people. Number one, relational, get to know your people. What are their cultures? How do they run meetings in Germany? How do they run meetings in New Zealand? What do they do in US? And how can we, instead of me telling you what to do, can we get together and say, okay, what is our team culture going to look like? I always like to break it down, especially when I work with large organizations, that every team is its own little culture. So it's like, how can we co-create and say, okay, here's how we do things around here. That is one, right, aspect of it, and kind of like borrow the best from different cultures and design what works for you. And as a leader, and this is the work that I'm most passionate about, how do we equip managers with those skills? How do you build trust? How do you build safety? And how can you make sure you're an inclusive leader? Meaning that, okay, what is the time zone of our meetings? And what if I am on the West Coast, it's 9 o'clock for me in the morning. You guys are finishing work. Someone needs to pick up their kids. Someone is still at the airport. So how can we be more mindful of different lifestyles and people's schedules and make sure that everyone is invited and everyone is included? So if you can keep that kind of like lens, top of mind.
Yeah. Nadezhda, I know you had a question.
Yeah, I would probably postpone my question because it's a natural continuation of what you, Anya, just started sharing with us. We have a question from Victoria asking, how do you build and keep culture when people work remotely?
Yeah. Same. As I said, talk to your people, get to know your people. We often feel like I don't have time for one-on-ones. Like I have so much work to do, especially as a leader, right? It's like I have to do my work and the teamwork and still meet all the priorities. People build relationships with them. Like that's where people stay. Like get to know them and what they need. This is where you differentiate, right? Equity and equality. Not everyone needs the same. Some people need every Monday, like little meeting to get aligned. Others don't. Like I don't want you bothering me every day and like micromanaging. So it's like get to know your people. And as I said, there's a large company culture with their vision and values, but you as a leader create your own team culture. And what is your team culture? All it is, culture is a kind of like a collection of individual behaviors and how we do things around here. So what are your team values? How do you do things around here? What's okay and what's not okay?
Thank you, Anya. Indeed, leadership is 50% relationship, 50% results. It's not either or, right?
Exactly.
But as we're welcoming you in Agile community, where business owners typically have some tangible perception around the return on investment of Agile transformations. So I'm curious, from your experience, what shift might be needed in organizational leadership to understand and fully embrace the impact of diversity, equity, and inclusion work?
So there are two elements, right? People ask me like, do I have to do this? I'm like, no, there's still people who send faxes and use Excel. You don't have to do it. You'll just be left behind because that's where the world is going. That's one. And second, like, what are you trying to measure, right? There's no a cookie cutter approach. Every culture, every industry, every product is going to be different. Who is your market? Go back to your market and think like, are we representative of our market? The market is becoming less male. We already know female are buying products. The market is becoming less white. So are you representing your market segment on your marketing team and sales team? Some KPIs, of course, are retention. Like how much money are we spending on hiring and are we retaining talent? And then measuring your sales and marketing efforts when you start speaking to the needs of your market. So hopefully those could be like the first two KPIs that you can start measuring for your company. But as I said, again, reach out to me. I'd be happy to chat with you because it depends. It depends where you are. Even between Canada and US, East Coast, West Coast, metrics will be different.
Thank you, Anya.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to go back to one more question. Because I think that is so powerful, the message that you brought on that as a white male, you don't need to feel like you have to justify yourself.
You're on the outside.
Can we talk more about that? Can you? I know you had to fit everything in 15 minutes.
Yeah. Well, I'll share with you an experience. In our culture building days before COVID, we used to run retreats and we would do it actually like in person with people, with all the leadership team and different actually like segments of the business and cross-functional teams. And I noticed when we did it, there's an exercise called privilege walk, and you can find it on YouTube. I'll be able to share, where people stand in line, in the same line, and we say, okay, if we all start in the same, we say we start at the same point, and we start asking people questions, and people either move forward if they had privilege or they move backwards. And at the end of the exercise, you see people at the very front who had all the privilege in the world, and people had no privilege. And by that, I mean something like I remember shocking for me was, if you were told that you are smart and beautiful and you can be anybody you want in the world, make a step forward. And I'm like, it's not about money, cars, education. It's this upbringing mentality and internalized dominance of like, babe, you go out into the world, be whoever you want to be. That's a privilege because so many people didn't have those parents. So what I noticed, that people in the very front with all the privilege and people at the very back felt the same amount of shame. They were just as ashamed to be in the front as the people who were in the very back. And facilitating those conversations where it's like, there's your life experience, right? And separating social privilege from status and money. is a very important conversation to have. And for you to embrace your privilege and say, wow, I have the status, I have the influence, and who am I going to share it with? So one of the things to look for when people say, well, I don't see color. I don't see color. I know in US it's a big conversation about racism. And I'm like, well, we need to start seeing color. Because when you get a list of candidates with your privilege, why don't you ask, can I give this opportunity to a person of color instead of another white person? With my status and influence, can I just give someone else that one lift that they might need? So start seeing color, start paying attention who are your candidates and who is at your meetings, who is included in decision-making processes. That's all. I get so passionate, sorry.
Yeah, and we need that kind of passion in our organizations for sure. So thank you for expanding on that.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been my absolute honor and pleasure to share my work with you.
Great. So everyone, you know how to get in touch with Anya from here. The recording, I think, is going to be shared. So thank you, Anna, so much for being our first new Agile voice, and for starting this new program that we are looking forward to continue.
Thank you. Thank you for creating this space, and good luck.
Thanks.
Thank you, Anya. That's an absolute privilege having you with us. And thank you for sharing all your wisdom and all these amazing, practical, very touching and vulnerable nuggets. My main takeaway from this session is that all of us ever felt the other. All of us are the other in our own unique way. So let's embrace it to evolve and become better together.
And I think what would be cool, share in a chat, what is the moment where you felt like the other? That would be cool to see it from each other when you get a chance. Thank you, Nadezhda. Thanks.
Wonderful.
All right.
Wow,
that's a strong start. And I'm very, very much looking forward to our next story by Nicole.
Yes.
Hello, hello. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. I am super excited to be here at the New Voices portion of the Experienced Agile Conference. I am grateful beyond belief to Ardita and Nadezhda for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to be part of this new program and a portion of the conference. I'm excited today to share with you how you yourself can make your perfect Agile skill set. I'm going to talk with you about different ways to think about your life, think about things that you've done in your life, and draw from those experiences to make yourself the best Agilist you can be. Who am I? I am Nicole Wilker. I am from Denver, Colorado in the United States. I started out life as a software engineer. I moved on from there to be a business analyst, and then on to learning about Scrum and Agile, becoming a Scrum Master, moving on to being an RTE and an SBC, SAFE, Agile Alliance, all the different things just pull me in, and I want to know more and do more and be more, and I'm excited to learn. On here is also my pup. His name is Paco. He's a rescue. He brings me unlimited joy, and also sometimes he just doesn't want to be near me because he acts like a cat. Who knows? On the bottom right there, we have my husband, John, who is my best cheerleader, my support system, the one who makes me feel that I can do anything. So I'm pretty lucky to have him in my life. So I mentioned today, we're going to talk about the different things in your life that you already are doing that's making you the best Agilist you can be. There's a couple things that I'm going to talk about in my life that I realized that make me able to do the things I do. We're going to think about different ways that you can pull from your life. What talents do you have? What kind of learning have you done? Is it different skill sets, higher education, different types of conferences and other types of learnings? How creative are you? Are you using that sort of part of your brain to make things the best they can be? What kind of interests do you have? Where do your expertise lie? What kind of hobbies do you enjoy? So you'll notice we have two toolboxes that you can draw from. We have the kind on the left, which is very organized. Everything is in its place. You can easily see what you need at the moment. On the right is also a perfectly acceptable toolbox. Things are in there. Maybe they're a little jumbled. Maybe they're doesn't look like they're in the right spot, but for you, you know where that specific tool is that you need at that moment to make all the difference. So don't think about needing to be perfect, thinking about needing to be your toolbox and what is perfect for you. So as we talk through some of these topics, take a minute to think about your life and maybe draw some parallels to mine or not, but just think about different ways that you have done things and you can be the best that you want to be. For me, having a positive attitude really brings the room together. For me, if I go into a meeting or I go into an interaction with another person with a frown on my face, it starts the whole thing off at a lower level. It does not bring in the energy and the interaction and the way that you want to be with that other person in quite the right way. I've seen meetings start with a frown and the other people draw from that, and you're not going to get the collaboration that you need to make the best path forward. For me, my dad was my super happy, funny fella in my life. He always had a joke to tell or a funny drawing to make or something that would make me put a smile on my face and be able to move forward no matter what was happening. So do you need to always have a smile on your face? No. But how do you bring your best self to a meeting? So for me, that's a positive attitude. For you, it could be something else from your repertoire, something else that makes you the individual that you are. Back in the day, I used to teach aerobics. I know that sounds silly, but what that taught me was I had a room full of people. Maybe they knew me, maybe they did not, but I needed to be able to build energy in the room and show them that I had the capability to bring them to the end of the class, knowing what they were doing, knowing how to move their feet, knowing how to move across the floor. So I had to build in that room the ability for those people to trust me for that hour to get them from beginning to end. And it was quite an experience, and it really left a big heart, a big happiness in my heart. Another thing I do with buy-in and trust is with my teams. I have a phrase that I use, and it has come to my attention. And what that does is that allows people to give me information, share scenarios and feelings with me, knowing that they can trust me to do the best with that information. So however I need to share it to solve a problem or move a situation forward, they know that I will do that to the best of my ability and not sell them out, for lack of a better word. Vulnerability. Brene Brown has some of the best quotes about the different ways to be rumble with vulnerability and some other topics that, fight from the floor of the stadium, things like that. So you need to be able to understand where you are at a point in time. for me, if I don't know something, it can give you that feeling in the pit of your stomach that, oh no, I've done something wrong, or I don't have the answer. But it's okay, knowing that you have the ability to find the answer. You have the ability to talk to the people that know the answer, and you can get it for whoever needs it or whoever is asking you for that information. Again, similar when I was teaching aerobics, basically it was a leotard, which is very little clothing and shows off a lot of you. So being able to stand up in front of that room and dance my little heart out, knowing that I was giving it all and showing my all, really helped me to be brave, to be vulnerable, to show I knew what was wrong or I knew what was right. If I missed a step, I could, bring it back to the top and bring everybody with me to let's try this again and let's try something new. It'll be okay. So use that to the best of your ability. Iterating through things. I had a friend who was telling me how she learned to surf. If anybody has ever seen it or done it, basically you start on the sand. There is no water. You're on the surfboard, you're learning how to stand on it and jump on it, and then eventually you work toward being able to do all that in the water. So running through the iterative process of what do I do with myself, with my feet, with my hands on this board, iteratively going through, finding out what did I do wrong, inspect and adapt on form and speed and ways of moving one's body to make your process the best that it can be. I found that amazing. So I really love the iterative processes, working through it with teams and keeping them agile is it's really fun to see people do the inspect and adapt and find small ways to change that will make a big win in their lives. Lifelong learning is a phrase I heard from Nicole Spence-Goon during a different conference earlier in the year, and I love it. I love the phrase. I love thinking about always learning things, staying curious, making sure that I'm thinking about things and learning more things. I am the queen of going to webinars and meetups, and the pandemic has been the absolute best. I have been able to cover the globe with different time zones and being able to learn things from all kinds of different people I might have never met or been able to spend time with. I listen to podcasts when I'm cooking, any number of things to make sure that I always have a bit of knowledge that's growing in my brain. Now, I know there's a lot of people in my life that do not like to read a book or something similar to that. They prefer smaller chunks of information, be it something from the news or a small snippet that's on LinkedIn, but nothing big that they need a large commitment to. And that's fine. Learn the way that you want to, be it from another person, be it from media, be it from TikTok. It doesn't matter, but always be curious, always move forward and find something to know about and get better at. Back in the day, I took a class, I think I was 12, and I took a class on babysitting. And that taught me how to do a number of things. It taught me how to think about the processes involved in taking care of, at this point, it was a small human, or, well, it was a doll they were teaching us how to work on. But you had to, there was certain steps that you had to do with a baby to change a diaper or to make sure they were fed. There was troubleshooting that you needed to do if the baby was crying or didn't need to be burped, or different things to think about, looking at the problem from different scenarios to figure out a solution. And also to be calm under stress. When a small child is screaming, that can be as stressful as possibly a boss yelling at you in a meeting. So being able to take a minute, think about what was going on, follow your processes, think about how to troubleshoot the problem, and moving forward to a awesome endpoint. So think about different ways in your life, things that have taught you responsibility and will make you the Agilist you need to be. No experiment fails. My friend Meenakshi Iyer told me this when I was complaining about a failed experiment. She said, there is never a failure, it is only an outcome. That is why you are experimenting. That is why you are trying things. It is not, it is just what happened based on what you did. So thinking about different ways to work with teams, or one example was I really like to cook. In the States, zucchinis are very prolific this time of year. So I have a number of recipes that work with zucchinis. They can be turned into brownies, they can be turned into fritters, they can be turned into pizza. I am the queen of finding things to do with zucchinis. A while ago, I got a box which had a yellow squash in it, and I didn't really know what to do with it. I didn't really feel like sauteing it up or adding it to a meal, so I thought I might experiment with one of my zucchini recipes and use the yellow squash. I can tell you that the outcome was I will never do that again. Again, I'm not going to call it a failure. I simply learned that yellow squash is not the same as zucchini. So keep that in mind when you're trying things. Always keep an open mind, find out what is going to happen, be excited about what has happened, what has come to fruition at the end of your experiment. My mom is my personal Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who is a Supreme Court Justice, or was a Supreme Court Justice here in the States. My mom was a feisty, independent, strong woman who taught me how to be who I am today. She taught me to have integrity. She taught me to be true to my word. She taught me to make sure that my values were what I was living toward. And I take that to heart in many of the things that I do. Some of the things we talked about, vulnerability or buy-in and trust, all that ties back to having integrity and being able to live up to your word, being able to say, you know, I don't know the answer, but I can find out. Being able to live your values and bring people along with you in the case of having teams or learning with others, showing them the way that you live your life, and you want others to be strong and independent and have integrity is it's just a great feeling, and knowing that it came from my mom is pretty fantastic. Finally, everybody, please have fun in whatever you do. If you are with a team, if you are out in the world, please have fun. If you aren't having fun with what you're doing, maybe find another way to do it. For me, I do all kinds of craziness. I'll do questions in my stand-ups with my teams. When I'm doing group meetings with my pod mates, we'll do team icebreakers, and we'll try and learn a little bit about each other, have fun, tell jokes, enjoy the time in the day and getting to our successes together. So just make sure, have some fun in your day. So finally, most importantly, to be the best Agilist, to fill your toolbox, you need to be authentic to you. You need to be who you are. So draw from your hobbies, your interests, everything that makes you the you that you are, the authentic you that you are. Put that in your toolbox and grow from that and use it to the best of your abilities. So this is just a small list of some of the things that I've thought about over time, of different ways in my life that things have built me into who I am, and I've been able to use in a positive way across my work as an Agilist. So I'll leave you with just a couple questions to think about as you turn yourself into the best Agilist you can be, or expand on the amazing Agilist that you are. Think about your life and what can you draw from. Do you have any common traits with other people that you respect and love to watch on YouTube or a meetup or another conference recording? And then just take a vision in your head of what is actually in that toolbox of yours, and be you and be the best Agilist you can be. Thank you for your time, and I'm open to questions if we have any.
Yay! That was so authentic. And to your point, be authentic. You really brought your own self. You really brought your own experience. You pulled from zucchini to leotards to your mom and dad, and it cannot get any more authentic than that. Thank you, Nicole. I hope this has opened up even some point of views on our attendees here to see that, you know, we all have taken different paths in our life, and we all are where we are because of the experiences we have. So it might just we might just well use those experiences and bring them into this agile world that we are trying to build, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. It also reminded me, I met once in an agile open space. I met someone that was a musician, and he had a friend that was a scrum master, and the scrum master friend brought the musician and said, you know, just come and listen. You'll find something that you love in here. And the musician was like, I have nothing to do with this. I don't know how to build software. I don't know anything. But then he started looking into, you know, collaboration and, you know, people skills. And he kind of started talking about things that musicians do. So probably, how would someone that thinks that I have no skills like this, how can they come along and still be part of these agile teams that we want to have?
Yeah, definitely. As I mentioned, you have everything inside you that you need today. It took me a long time. It was based on another friend of mine helping me think about things I could talk about, to realize that throughout my life, I've done random things that have the values, the Agile principles that come from your life. So just don't think of it as Agile. Think of it as being the best at what you can do to create the environment that you want. So don't think of it as Agile, you know, in air quotes, but think of it as you being the best that you can be.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to pick on one of the tools that you brought, the integrity. It is a skill that, and a word that we talk so much about, and it is hard, right? It is hard because everybody has bills to pay, and everybody has, you know, sometimes people feel like they have to negotiate and not be their own self. What do you say about that? How can people deal with it when they are put into a place where their integrity is in test?
I am probably not a good example of that. I am pretty straightforward. I grew up north of Boston. I am a type A personality, and I definitely say what's on my mind. But I love the principle of an Agilist is generally working themselves out of a job. So if you have made someone uncomfortable with a question, perhaps you are on the right path. But as far as you can still be respectful in an environment and be true to your values. There's a lot of different ways to re-ask a question or restate something that was said so that it's clear perhaps that isn't the way you like to think about things, and that they should reframe the question so that it's more appropriate for you in the room that you're in.
Yeah, thank you for that. And maybe you are the example we want, in contrary of what you might think. So I like the questions that you left the crowd with. You left them with some questions there. I want to explore one of those. So if I can remember. Oh, I lost them. But it was about just looking to yourself, right? Just look into what do you think you are. How did that happen to you? Did you just sit on one day in the couch and you thought about what should it be, or are these things that you need to just more look how you behave or what made you do certain things, and then in retrospective to understand that?
Generally in the frame of I really, really love Agile. So I was thinking about the principles
Mhm.
and my mind meandered back into different parts of my life. And I remembered teaching aerobics and how funny that was. And I started thinking about different things that happened in a class, and my brain put those two pieces together of the fact that pretty much everything you need to do to be a scrum master or a product owner or any manner of agilist within a team comes from, it was basically a team sport. So if you don't have to teach aerobics, you could have been on a soccer team or a bicycle team or even an individual sport to create the pieces inside you that move you toward the end game.
Yeah, and maybe even pull from what Anya was saying earlier to look at what made you the other, and probably that also affects you, your the way you look in the world, right?
Definitely.
Right, right. Well, I have some takeaways from here to look into your experience, look into your past, find what have you done previously that have taught you some lessons in life and some lessons on making you you, and see how they are linked to that agile mindset, to that agile principles that we teach or that we want to practice, and try to relate to those experiences in your day to day, no matter what you're doing. You're building a software or you're cooking a recipe in zucchini cake.
Definitely.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Thank you for bringing all of these tools from your toolbox and sharing them with us. And with that, we end the very first day of Agile New Voices. And we couldn't have started any better with these two speakers. So thank you, everyone, for attending. Please leave any feedback. We'd love to hear from you. And please join us tomorrow. We have two more speakers tomorrow. We have JF and we have Lars that will continue to share some interesting stories, personal experiences that they have had. And I'm pretty sure you will find something useful and beneficial and you'll love it. Thank you, everyone. See you tomorrow.